These are the first characters people think of when they hear the phrase Bollywood villains. And now Bollywood has come to this.
अब किसी भी कीमत पर मुझे कबूलनामा चाहिए.
It genuinely breaks my heart to see what we have done to the great Bollywood villain. There was a time when these villains were terrifying. You look at Amjad Khan's Gabbar Singh and you still feel the chills. You look at Amrish Puri's Mogambo and so many other villain characters he has played, and his voice and his eyes are enough to freeze you. If you go back in time a little bit, you have the iconic Ajit and Pran who brought in the vibes of the cool villain. And if you don't want to look at the old classics, take a look at Manoj Bajpayee in movies like Kaun and
Road आपके रोंगटे खड़े करता हुआ आदमी कि ये अभी मारेगा, ये अभी मारेगा, ये अभी भाई मातू मार खत्म करिए फिल्म. मेरे क्यों रोंगटे खड़े कर रखी?
And all these examples have stood the test of time because playing a good villain takes actual acting chops, and the golden rule of cinema still holds true.
Every search for a hero must begin with something that every hero requires. A villain.
But when we get a villain like Saurabh Dwivedi in Kartavya, it honestly hurts to see what Bollywood has done to the villain character. People are heavily trolling Saurabh Dwivedi's performance in Kartavya. The dislikes are insane, and you can't even blame him because the real problem started when the producers decided that social media followers matter more than acting ability. Listen to what casting director Mukesh Chhabra said on this topic.
What about using social Instagram as a casting pool?
I only looking for my character, right? And I think social media में the content creator and world are going. It's very different from the acting. I feel that is not acting.
When you put a real seasoned actor in front of a cinema lens, they understand the weight of the frame. A guy like Manoj Bajpayee or Akshay Khanna knows exactly how long to hold a pause to make the audience feel deeply uncomfortable. Their facial expressions, their dialogue delivery, it all becomes the psychology of the character. Every great villain has followed one basic rule. A great villain actually believes he's the hero of his own story. They have motivations, they have pain, they have a twisted logic that makes sense to them. Now compare this to someone whose following is built on reels and shots, where the training is to fill every single second with noise, fast cuts, and extreme over-the-top reactions so that people don't swipe away. But cinema doesn't work like that. A movie camera strips you down. A 70mm lens doesn't care about your engagement rate. If you don't have the acting fundamentals, if you don't have that internal gravity to anchor a scene, the lens exposes you immediately. And that is exactly why performances like the one in Kartavya fall completely flat.
2-4 दिन में तो दुनिया बीत जाती है मित्र.
पत्रकार की हत्या का दुख मुझे भी है. वैसे भी अब बचे ही कितने हैं देश में.
But stay tuned because we can't just blame social media following for everything. Long before casting directors started checking Instagram followers, Bollywood was already ruining the villain. Which is why let's take a trip down the past and explore what happened to the Bollywood villain and what should be the path going forward. Starting with the era when villains actually scared us. The time from 50s to 70s is generally regarded as the golden age of the Bollywood villain. Actors like Ajit, who basically invented the cool villain, sat there with his cigars, delivered lines in that calm, slow way, and didn't need to scream to prove a point.
सारा शहर मुझे लॉयन के नाम से जानता है और इस शहर में मेरी हैसियत वही है जो जंगल में शेर की.
Or even Pran Saab. I mean, people literally stopped naming their kids Pran in India because they hated his on-screen characters so much. That is actual real-world impact. They weren't just playing a role, they were shifting the culture.
You're goddamn right.
And the writers back then actually gave these characters room to breathe. They gave them iconic dialogues, but they also gave them a terrifying logic. Gabbar Singh wasn't just shooting people randomly. He had a whole philosophy about it.
जो डर गया समझो मर गया.
It wasn't just a catchy line written for a promo reel, it was his entire worldview. When Gabbar asks kitne aadmi the, he's just playing with his prey. The audience is holding their breath right along with his henchmen. That era worked because the industry actually respected the villain character. Directors knew the golden rule of cinema. Your hero is only as big as the villain he defeats. The 1980s and 1990s saw villains becoming more nuanced, shaped primarily by personal vendettas or social injustices. It was a time when the casting of a villain was just as big a deal as the hero. If a movie had Amrish Puri on the poster, you know exactly what you were paying for.
Mogambo, खुश हुआ.
Everyone obviously brings up Mogambo, but honestly, go back and watch him in Karan Arjun or Nayak. He didn't have to do these over-the-top antics to get your attention. He just had this massive physical presence, standing in a scene, and you naturally felt intimidated. He had that deep voice, sure, but it was really the way he looked at people. He could stare at the hero and the theater would go quiet because you genuinely believed he was a threat.
तुम्हारा अच्छा टाइम शुरू हो गया है.
Slowly that era saw the rise of the anti-hero. Sanjay Dutt's Ballu in Khalnayak brought psychological complexities as well as sympathy. The industry realized you didn't always need a guy sitting in a secret lair with 100 goons to be intimidating. Sometimes the scariest guy was the one standing right next to you. That's where Shah Rukh Khan came in, giving us some of the most genuinely terrifying performances in movies like Dar and Bazigar.
I love you, Kiran.
He wasn't a huge, muscular guy pulling off massive action scenes. He was just a regular-looking guy with a deeply broken mind. The stutter, the obsession, the way he would switch from looking completely innocent to entirely psychotic in a single second, he made the boy next door feel incredibly dangerous. And if we are talking about broken minds, we absolutely have to talk about Ashutosh Rana. Honestly, I don't think Bollywood has ever produced a villain as deeply unsettling as him in movies like Sangharsh and Dushman. You didn't just dislike his characters, you actively wanted to look away from the screen. He didn't need a massive budget, he just needed to stare into the camera and it was a pure nightmare. This is exactly what Manoj Bajpayee perfected as well. Just look at his work in Aks, Kaun and Road. Manoj Bajpayee understands a very basic rule of fear. The scariest person in the room isn't usually the guy shouting and waving a weapon around. It's the guy who is overly polite, the guy who smiles at you, but you can feel in your gut that something is fundamentally wrong with him. Then you have guys like Saif Ali Khan, who have an incredible ability to lean into the absolute madness of a character. Be it Langda Tyagi in Omkara or his work in Tanaji, he genuinely looks like he's having fun being bad, and that chaotic energy bleeds right through the screen.
देखें तो सही कि दूल्हे राजा के हैं तू तो बेवकूफ हैगा
हाँ जी हाँ. The 2010s saw the rise of villains who got more psychological depth into the villain character arc. Ranveer Singh's Khilji took the villain arc to a glorified path where the villain became the best thing of a movie. Same can be said about Gangs of Wasipur, where actors playing a mix of characters made the entire movie experience memorable. And this same level of craft is why the internet absolutely explodes when an established veteran actor steps back into a villain role today. Because when they do, they completely hijack the movie. Just look at the massive cultural impact of Bobby Deol's comeback in Animal. No dialogue, came onto the screen after more than 3/4 of the movie was finished. But the second he stepped on screen, you immediately felt the danger. It was pure physical dominance. He communicated entirely through his body language, his swagger, and that absolute dead look in his eyes. That comes from years of working in front of a camera. And we absolutely have to talk about actors like Akshay Khanna and Arjun Rampal. Akshay brings his seasoned heavyweight acting chops to the table, where he dominates the frame just by being the smartest, most calculated guy in the room. And Arjun gave us an iconic villain in Om Shanti Om and brought that same cold, calculated charm back in Dhurandhar.
खुदा कसम एक और हिंदुस्तानी सर काट कर मुरीद के मीनार से लटकाऊंगा.
When you watch these guys from Amrish Puri, SRK and Manoj Bajpayee to Bobby, Saif, Akshay and Arjun, you realize why the casting matters so much. They all have completely different styles, but they have one thing in common. They were cast because they are actual actors who understand the craft of holding a scene. They have the internal gravity to make the audience actually fear for the protagonist. And when you compare this level of seasoned veteran acting to the casting of Saurabh Dwivedi, the difference is just embarrassing. And honestly, the scariest part is that this isn't even just about the villains anymore. It's a full-blown disease that's spreading through every part of Bollywood casting. We are living in an era where the casting director's main job isn't reviewing audition tapes, it's reviewing a spreadsheet of followers. Look, I completely understand the math from the producer's side. If you look at it strictly as a business spreadsheet, it makes total sense. Cast someone with millions of followers and you get free marketing, instant buzz, guaranteed opening weekend curiosity. But it is incredibly short-sighted. Basically, it's a sugar rush. The buzz lasts until Friday evening, people show up for the curiosity factor and then they see the performance. And the word of mouth finishes the film by Saturday. Because no amount of Instagram followers can convince an audience that someone is terrifying when they are clearly acting. And here's a deeper damage nobody talks about. This doesn't just ruin one movie, it trains the entire industry. When a producer sees an influencer get cast in a villain role, the next producer thinks, well, that's the formula now. Young actors see that followers matter more than craft, so they stop investing in craft. The whole ecosystem shifts away from what actually makes a great villain. And here is the biggest problem with this whole trend, something that producers and casting directors don't seem to realize. When you miscast your villain, you aren't just ruining one character, you're actually ruining your hero. The entire structure of a movie relies on the protagonist overcoming a credible threat. Your hero is only as good as the person standing in their way. If Batman is fighting some random guy on the street, nobody cares. He needs the Joker to push him to his absolute limit. The industry needs to get back to the basics. We need casting directors who are actually doing the work, looking at theatre and indie films and finding raw talent that is starving for a chance to prove themselves. We need to stop checking engagement rates and start checking acting ability. Until the industry accepts this and takes it seriously, we'll keep getting these plastic, cringe-worthy bad guys. And honestly, the audience is already over it. But look, to be completely fair, we can't just blame social media and influencers for everything. Bollywood has been plagued by two other reasons which have actually ended the villain arc. First up, vanity. There has been this massive trend where filmmakers cast a mainstream good-looking hero type actor to play the antagonist, which sounds great on paper, but the problem is they refuse to let go of their vanity. They want to play the bad guy, but they still want to look like superstars. So instead of getting a terrifying, unhinged psychopath, we get a guy in a perfectly tailored designer suit with perfectly styled hair and an expensive pair of sunglasses, just kind of sneering at the camera. Think back to Vivek Oberoi in Krish 3. Here you have a massive superhero film and the villain is Carl, but instead of feeling genuinely intimidated by him, you are just watching a guy in a highly stylized metallic suit posing for the camera. Or look at Arjun Rampal in Ravan. He is a fantastic actor, but they gave him this bright red suit and a goatee that made him look more like a comic book toy than a menacing threat. Contrast that with Sanjay Dutt playing Kancha Cheena in the Agnipath remake. He completely destroyed his hero vanity. He shaved his head, removed his eyebrows, bulked up and wore those basic dirty black clothes. He looked hideous and because of that he looked terrifying. But too many actors today are just too scared to look ugly on screen. And then we have the second major problem. Lazy writing, specifically sacrificing the villain just to stroke the hero's ego. We see this in almost every big masala film today. Look at Imran Hashmi in Tiger 3. Imran is a phenomenal actor, but the writing for this character was so weak that he never actually felt like a legitimate dangerous threat to Salman Khan. The writers purposely make the antagonist do incredibly stupid things in the second half just so the hero can easily defeat him. But filmmakers don't realize that when you dumb down the villain, you're actually insulting your hero. If the bad guy is incompetent, then defeating him is not an achievement. Writers today try so hard to artificially create the next Gabbar or Mogambo that they just give the villain a random weird quirk instead of actual personality. Look at what they did to Lankesh in Adipurush. Saif Ali Khan is a proven incredible villain. We all saw that in Omkara. But instead of a terrifying scholarly demon king, we got a guy with an atrocious CGI haircut, feeding bats and acting like a complete cartoon caricature. It feels completely artificial. A great villain doesn't need a funny laugh or a bizarre costume to be memorable. They need a terrifying logic. So yeah, while the influencer casting trend we are seeing right now might be the final nail in the coffin, the reality is that the foundation of a great Bollywood villain was already cracking because of big egos, vanity and incredibly weak scripts. And that is my take on the change in the Bollywood villain.
Mogambo, khush hua.
What do you think? Is the era of the legendary Bollywood villain gone for good or can we still save it? Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to this channel for more such videos and do check out our video on how Indian actors get paid right here. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.